Aquarius. Welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for May of 2022. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Kell Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
And I'm Julia Mijas in San Francisco.
Well, Aquarius, this month's horoscope covers a variety of topics from career to creativity, organization, and communication. A lot of stuff, really. If you want a reading to cover any of these topics in more depth and more personally for you, including timing of events that may be going on, you can get a natal and transit reading in which you can get answers to any kind of question. And you'll find a link for that in the YouTube description below. Well, I have a wonderful news about a Jupiter transit. So Jupiter is traveling along through Pisces at the beginning of this month. As you can see, it's been in your second house. And that has been basically a money luck year for you. Jupiter is going to move on into the third house briefly for a couple of months. And then it's going to come back into your second house where it will return to that money luck period. And I have to tell you, the beginning of this month and when Jupiter returns to this house later in the year are the very best times to grab the last of the money luck that's available to you during this Jupiter transit. When Jupiter does move into the third house, which it's going to do a little later on this month, it's going to begin bringing you luck in a different area, which is the area of communication. So if you are engaged in a learning program, this can really open your mind up to receive that knowledge that wants to be poured into it. So this can be really, really beneficial for that. Or if you are wanting to write something, this could be a really great year for a writing process and practice. The next thing I want to tell you about is that on the 15th, Ceres will leave the sign of Gemini where she's been for the last couple of months, and she's going to enter into the sign of Cancer right here, your sixth house. And this is, I think, a wonderful transit because Ceres is about taking good care of the ways that we interface with the physical world, our physical bodies, our food and eating, and our finances and our security. When Ceres moves into the sixth house, this is really, really good for your habits because the sixth house is also a house of health and good habits. So this could be a transit in which you get better organized. Like maybe you set up a cooking routine that gets you through the week, eating better and healthier food. Oops, sorry about that. Gracious. That's case in point, actually, that was the laundry timer. So routines, there clearly. So Ceres is going to be in this house for a couple of months, helping you set up those really good housekeeping routines that can help your home run smoothly for a home run. And now I just want to give a little nod and a wink to Juno, which is traveling along through your second house and will be there for several more months this year, much of the rest of the year. It's going to go retrograde soonish. And so now is a time to really get ahead of the 8 ball in terms of the finances that you share with your partner and the ways that your personal money interfaces with your spouse's money or your business partner's money or the money that you share in your business. So getting ahead of that because there's probably going to be a reevaluation coming in that area. It could even get messy and confusing. So start now to draw some clear lines between your own money and the money that you share. Hey, Julia, I know you've got news about Mercury, Venus, and Mars. What's that good stuff?
Oof, lots of stuff going on for Aquarius this month. The big thing is Mercury is going retrograde again. It happens about 3 times a year, and it can be a bit of an annoying cycle of miscommunications and a time of review with wherever Mercury is in your chart. So Mercury is the planet of communication and mentation, and it starts the month in your 5th house. The 5th house is a super fun house. It's the house of dating. It's the house of games. It's the house of of, partying in general. And it also rules children too, if you happen to have some. Now, Mercury starts the month in the 5th house, which means that your mind is going to be on more amusing diversions than anything super serious. Maybe you're kind of planning out your next game or calling up people to, go to the theater or a sports arena, all of those things ruled by the 5th house. Mercury, since it's the planet of communication and the 5th house can represent your children, maybe you're having increased communication with your kids. Maybe you guys are sort of teaching and learning with one another if you have small ones at home too, because Mercury is the planet of learning. Now on May 10th, Mercury will go retrograde in your 5th house. So retrograde cycles are times of miscommunication and review. If you do have kids, there may be some miscommunications cropping up. Maybe if you have little kids, they're kind of fibbing with you or not being straight with their words, and you have to kind of sort it out. It can also apply to teenagers too. Now Mercury is also a game loving planet, and the 5th house represents games. So if you are involved in any game playing, let's say you do sports, let's say you're in a gamer circle, do video games, you could also be rethinking some of your strategies and rethinking your approach to things. Then on May 21st, we're having Lesser Epiphany Day, and that's when Mercury retrograde exactly conjoins the sun. And when that happens, it's usually a time of more insights and clarity. It's like getting a little bit of light through the fog of a Mercury retrograde. So in your 5th house, that means you could get a little bit of clarity on matters, including your children. Maybe you're thinking, do I want to have a child or not? Or maybe you're thinking about some other issue involving your kid. And it can also be a time of some clarity with any of your creative projects, any of the things that you're involved with creatively. If you've been struggling or having to go and redo stuff, you might get your little aha moment then. Now, Venus, everyone's favorite planet, because she represents art, beauty, and relationships. The very first day of the month, she's just leaving your 2nd house of money and possessions, where you probably enjoyed a cycle of accumulating some wonderful things that give you a lot of pleasure. But on May 2nd, Venus enters your 3rd house, and she's there for most of the month. So the 3rd house is the house of siblings. It's the house of your local community, like your neighbors and neighborhood. It can also, let's see, what else is 3rd house? It's the house of writing, communication, learning, and it also rules little trips too, short journeys. Like going for a weekend drive, for example, going to the beach, going to a park. So with Venus coming into this house, is a wonderful time in terms of having sort of better communication with people, because Venus is a peace-loving planet. She can give you a little bit of luck in how you communicate. Also, if you're doing any writing too, and it helps you to be a little bit more diplomatic and maybe even poetic with your words. And Venus in the 3rd is a wonderful time for getting along well with your siblings, getting along well with the people you live next to, whether you've got a neighbor who lives down the hall or one who lives in a house over. But a wonderful time for that. And Venus in the 3rd is also good if you want to take a little trip, get out of town, maybe get an Airbnb by the beach, because Venus is adding a little bit of pleasure to short journeys as well. Then on May 28th, Venus enters your 4th house of family and home, where you're going to be finding pleasure and, really, increased sort of getting along well with other people, especially in the realm of your home. So that means getting along with family and maybe even enjoying your home life more, which is really lovely. And we're going to cover that in next month's video. So please stay tuned to hear about how that will affect you. And then we also have to talk about Mars. Mars is the planet of action and activity. Wherever we have it is where we can be very, very driven, but also where we can run into some frustrations and conflict. So Mars starts the month in your 2nd house. Again, I mentioned it earlier, it's the house of possessions and money. So you are going to be feeling really driven to sort of chase that dollar, whether that's at your job, working hard to see if you can get a raise later this year. Maybe you're working hard to see if you can get because this is tax season, getting a little bit of money back for your taxes too. Now, Mars in the 2nd can sometimes run into some frustration over belongings and money, sometimes disagreements with other people too. The 2nd house house can also rule your values too, whether they're family values, spiritual values, political values. So there might be some tension in your life over values too during that time. Then on May 24th, Mars enters your third house. Venus at this point is only in there for a couple of days with Mars, but then moves on with Mars just being in the third on his own. And that means you're going to go from having a very sweet tongue earlier in the month to being a bit sharper with your words by the very, very last week. So Mars in the third tends to make people a lot more assertive with their communication, which can be a good and constructive thing that time. The only problem with Mars is sometimes he goes a bit overboard and overly asserts. So having a little bit of awareness and being able to slow those roles a bit can definitely help out too. Mars in the first might also feel very driven to learn something new. This would be a great transit if you have a lot of writing to get done this month, like maybe at work or at school, because wherever we have Mars, we find our energy. And you might not be seeing eye to eye with your siblings and with your neighbors too this month. So good to know about.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've got a lunar eclipse to report, and a lunar eclipse that falls in Scorpio. And well, just to begin with, a moon in Scorpio is going to be pretty intense, and a full moon would be intense enough, but this is also an eclipse, which means that the moon is near a node. The sun is also near the opposite node, the north and south nodes, and so this is a particularly intense eclipse. Lunar eclipses, they show us our shadow through how we feel. Through our subjective experience, they can be characterized by emotional upsets, which reveal our shadow to us. This particular one is landing in your 10th house of career. So I have to caution you around the 15th against emotional outbursts at work, which might make it obvious to everybody around you that you're a little unhinged. Not to say that you are generally unhinged, but this is definitely a time to strengthen and grease the hinge before the 15th so that you don't make a bad showing at work. And then the next thing I want to tell you about is the seasonal change. The sun is going to move into Gemini, leaving Taurus and entering your 5th house of creation, recreation, and procreation. So as Julia was describing, it covers fun, play, and entertainment, also dating, casual sex, and entertainment, like I said, in all its forms, and creativity too. So children and creative products. So as the sun comes into this house, it's going to spend 30 days lighting this house up with the vigor and vitality of the sun. And wherever the sun goes, it's a really good idea to shine the spotlight of your high quality attention. And so attention brought to creative projects or to situations where you can build a brand or promote yourself. This is a really good way to spend your attention during this season of Gemini, which lasts for 30 days beginning March 21st. And as Julia has already hinted, as the sun goes along, and really right at the beginning of the sun's movement into Gemini, it's going to meet up with Mercury, which is engaged in a little retrograde journey at that point, causing you to rethink your creative projects and the ways that you entertain yourself and potentially, clear up some communications with children. And so the sun will light up Mercury on its way along this house. Then the last thing I want to tell you about is the final moon of this month, which is happening on the 30th. And this is a new moon here in Gemini in the 5th house. And so after the sun has moved into this arena and started lighting it up and met up with Mercury and helped Mercury to get some insights about how things can be cleaned up in this house, when the sun meets up with the moon, it's time for new beginnings, fresh starts, and the planting of seeds in your creativity that could grow into bigger projects in the future. Well, Aquarius, that's what we have for you. Hope you enjoyed it. We certainly enjoyed making it for you because we always do. you will find your other horoscope. If Aquarius is your sun sign, definitely look up your rising sign and vice versa. You'll find your horoscopes on our website, pandoraastrology.com, in the horoscopes tab. You will find the news of the month on our forecast page there. And if you are moved to take a class or get a reading about any of the topics that this horoscope brought up, you can find that good stuff on our website too. And until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos. Bye-bye.
Bye.